Hello, this is Eric of NR200 and welcome to my build within the NR200 Cooler Master case. So the parts I'm going to be using, well, they're all in front of me, so let's zoom out a bit. Case is all ready to go. We have my Be Quiet Shadow Rock cooler, a 120mm PMW fan from Be Quiet, a 140mm non-PMW. I have the PMW fan on order. PMWs are nicer for fan control, so if you want to go in your BIOS or use the software included with your motherboard and control the fan, control the speed of your fan more precisely, you generally want a PMW, pulse modulation, anyways. And for storage, we're using a 2 GB M.2 Game X S11 Pro. So that's my main storage. And for my backup for my videos, I'm actually using an older Samsung 970 Pro. And the reason I'm using the 970 Pro rather than say the 980 per se, something newer, is because this is MLC. So my graphics card is MSI Gaming X Trio, which is massive at 323 millimeters, which is 32 centimeters. That's over a foot in length. Yeah, it's big. It's a big boy. And you might be wondering, how did I get this with the shortage? Well, instead of going online to buy my products, I actually went to a store and had them special order them through their supplier for me. So I'm using a Ryzen 3800X. You might be wondering, well, there's the 5000 series. I have one that's actually coming. I live in the middle of nowhere, so there's no overnight shipping available for your CPU. This is simply an SFX small form factor. And this is 750 watts, platinum rated, which of course platinum rated is above gold, which basically means 92% plus. Let's see if I can see it on here, because it might even be 93%. But the point, very efficient, low heat. And that's what I want, because lower power usage, lower heat. It all works together. So my cables I've put aside for me to be ready to build. And my motherboard right here, the Gaming Edge. So this is the B550i Gaming Edge Wi-Fi from MSI. Oh, and before we go too far, all of this, every single thing you see here, I purchased with my own money. Nothing, not one item is provided to me for free. Everything, retail cost, every single thing. And my RAM. So this is 32 gigabytes, 2 sticks of 16 gigabytes. It's 3600 RAM, cast latency 17 for the RAM here. And I believe this one is dual rank. There's single rank and dual rank. So if you don't know what that is, there are videos on that on YouTube. I believe Gamers Nexus and maybe another channel as well talks about single rank versus dual rank. Dual rank gives you more speed, especially if you're using only 2 sticks. If you're using 4 sticks, it's not an issue. Using it with the square on the board itself. So this cutout, square cutout with a square cutout on here. Make sure it's all the way in and close her in. And then I got M.2, so I want to do that right away as well. So the one I'm going to put on top here, it doesn't matter which one. However, this particular board, the PCI Express 4.0 is here, but both my drives are 3.0 standard, so it doesn't matter where I put them. And before I get too far, I need a screwdriver. Okay, so one problem is I have to loosen these off. I think it was AEJuice that made a neat little plastic latch that you can swing over rather than take out these little small screws. I prefer if it was like metal per se, just in case it breaks, but it's a cool idea versus these little screws that are so easy to fall out on you when you put the M.2. And there's an M.2 slot on the back end. And we want to put the other drive in that one. At least that's what I'm doing. So the Pro drive is a backup drive where it's more mission critical type work. So the nice aspect of this case here is how easy it is to actually open it. So this modular design does take a bit of pull, And it's actually decently thick metal. It's not what you would expect for the price. It's definitely good value that way. This is not it's not flexible, cheap metal. And both side cases are pretty much identical. So how this works, it has two little rivet type connections, and the bottom part rests on the lip of your case. And the top one is a little more challenging to come off because you have to use a bit more force. Now here's your accessories. I've actually already opened it before, so I have everything pretty much ready to go. And in the case itself, by the way, normally includes a 92mm fan right here. I tore it out because the airflow through here, and you'll notice that this is missing because if you watched my first video, this thing I kept on bumping and pushing in, so I was like, forget it. It keeps on getting pushed in a bit. So I just took it out. But here there's not much for airflow, so it can only work with the venting. It comes with the 92mm Cooler Master fan. And venting out the back is not the most efficient way for this case to be done. Here's a good place to actually mount your radiator if you have an all-in-one cooler. I'm not going to be using a radiator myself. I like the absolute silence of not having a radiator pump. But that's just me. I had a radiator before as well. Oh, and if you have a small radiator, what if you have a 120? One thing I came to the realization of is you can fit a 120mm right at the back end where your CPU cooler would normally be. Your power supply right here, cage, is in the way to actually fit any rad across all the way through. But that's just something to note. Now, what do I want to do next? Well, I'll show you this fan first. So you might notice here, if you have this particular case, or if you get it, you'll notice there's fans right here, and it has these little things in here. So the idea of that, it just goes in the hole in the top of your case. So they already planned for you to put a fan up on top here, 120mm. So, yeah. And this, of course, a little cage out here, so you don't stick your fingers in the hole. So the first thing I normally do after to start building in a case is my motherboard, because that's what everything attaches to. What I want to do is get rid of you on the top. Give yourself some room if you want to have it easy. And I recommend taking off this top. Only 2 screws hold this part, and it has a little angle here that slides in. The little groove. Nice, simple. The I/O. This is I/O. Will face this way. So with these small motherboards, there's only 4 screws you have to worry about. The mounts are already on the board, so it's just finding the right screws. And the one thing I found really nice about this case is it uses all the same screws throughout. Use these small little tiny screws. Nothing extravagant, but for mounting your motherboard or, well, anything on the case, power supply cage, you can use basically all these screws for that. Make sure screw holes are lined up. If you know what I'm doing, just screwing them in here. I'll just get a few in so I can show you. So the screw holes are basically in all 4 different corners of the board itself. So I got 2 so far. So there's one there, down here in the corner, and down here in the corner. Now, what you want to do next is up to you, but I'm going to probably just do the RAM right now. The one reason I have this particular RAM with this cooler is because this cooler's got to fit over the RAM modules, and these ones are one of the lowest height I can find, especially at this speed. Most of them are much taller than this. This is high performance RAM, and high performance RAM generally is like way up here. So this allows me more cooler options if you were to just go with an overhead cooler. My next cooler though, what I plan to put in here is a TF2. And by the way, a TF2 cooler of course is taller, so it wouldn't matter about your RAM modules so much. And now, so we got our RAM modules in. Next thing I'll normally want to do is the power supply. So what I want to do is get the caddy out. drive caddy. And the cool thing is it won't fall because it has little tiny hooks on it. So if we look at the back, there's a smaller size for power supply or a bigger size. It doesn't matter which one you mount it to if you have a regular SFX. If you have an L size, you'll want to mount it to the higher side because L is longer and then you don't want to interfere with the graphics card. Unless it was a short graphics card like a mini ITX size, well then you know what? It wouldn't matter. So let's take this out. And for some reason they have these Velcro straps here. I don't understand why. And I was trying to look through the manual and I don't understand why in the manual either. It might be the tap wires. It works convenient for that, for if you want to tap your wires and tidy them up a bit. Oh, and before I get to my wiring, I'm not a wiring connoisseur. I'm not great with organization of wiring, okay? So, yeah, if you expect a nice, fancy wiring job, that's not what I'm gonna give you because I'm not good at that stuff. It's not my talent. And for inside the case, you have one of these things. So I can mount it like this around the corner. That's what I'll do because I have too much slack. So since I have so much slack, I'm going to mount it this way with my plug this way because the plug is so much slack. So if I go this way around, what I have to do is do this weird thing with the plug. So, okay, so it's going this way. Now that by that, I can now add the screws to the power supply. Okay, so now power supply is mounted inside, and see, I'll get my cables. I don't need it right now, but I'm going to put it just because it's easier to get figured out what you need ahead of time if you know what you're going to use. We always need our 24-pin connection here. What else do we need? Power for my graphics card. My graphics card uses 2 8-pins, but I can use simply this one to the power supply and run the 2 8-pins from here, and it works just fine. Put it back. So now mounted that one, and now I need the CPU one. And the CPU one, I'm going to mount further back. If I put an SSD drive, one of these, I need a different cable yet, one for a slot with these. But since I don't, I can use less cables on my modular power supply. A lot of cheaper power supplies will the wires will be all mounted to it already and you won't be able to remove them. It's always easier to use a modular because you can reduce clutter. Put the 2 screws in. Okay, the nice part is I don't have to hold the power supply. It just has those little grooves, so I can just simply have it sit there and just put the screws in. Okay, I'm gonna try this. And no, I can't go over top. Which is sad, because that would have been nice if I could have just simply done that. However, with this pin right here, the CPU pin, I think I can do this. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. I think I can. The hardest part about connecting this for your CPU is the fact you're onto room, and one of the reasons is the aspects of this case. Right here, you have that power cable in the way right here, and I have the heat shield of this right in the way of here. So it's more difficult than it normally could have been. So and now I can also connect that power supply power cord. And my USB front ports. And this is my power and everything, my little switches. Nice thing, it's all connected in one, so I don't really have to put too much thought into it. The only thing I have to do is put it the right way around. If I put it the wrong way around, the computer won't start. Just flip it around the other way and it will start. So each motherboard's different, the location. My particular motherboard is right at the tip of my PCI Express slot. So I'm ready to put the fan on this one here. So I got my 120mm fan. I can use the one that's of course included, but I'm gonna use this, might be quiet. And I want it blowing out of the case. So I need it this way. So the cage side faces out this way. As in the drive cage that holds it together for mounting. Okay, and then I stick these little pins in. And I just push down. There's no special way to do this. Just line up your holes, slide it in. I like how simple that is. You don't have to even worry about screws. It's pretty neat. So there we are. So you might wonder, should you connect it now, your fan? You can, especially it could be a good idea because once your CPU cooler is in, you're not going to be able to reach these very well at all. So what I like to do is I like to twist tie these up. The case itself includes zip ties, so I can simply use that. Now you want to trim these after. So I got some thermal paste here. It doesn't matter which one you use so much as long as it's decent quality. They're all fairly similar. This particular one's quite thick, so some people won't like it as much. This is the NT-H2. I believe the H1 that's included with your NR200 coolers is a bit thinner. This one's fairly thick. So a lot of people like the thinner, easier to spread for the thermal paste. Don't want to put too much because I'll make a mess all over my CPU, which I've already done previously a bit. And how I usually like to do this is line at least one up so I can actually use my screwdriver or whatnot to actually attach to the one. So I try to get one pin in by hand before I do the other one. So I got it slid in by hand the one side, then I try to let the other side. For this particular mount, it's very, very easy with AMD. The particular cooler is slide between the heatsink and the fan cooler to keep the wires nice and snug underneath here. And now I think I'm just about ready to put my top on, but before I do that, I want to get the last fan in here. So I'm going to line this up on the side, put this in, and put the two screws in. I also have an extra USB header on my motherboard, so I got one of these from Amazon. So in this case, I'm going to slide it through the front, as you see in a moment. Very snug. 3 slots are maximum size you can fit of thickness of a card. And I believe this is the thickest graphics card I've ever personally owned. I usually go for low power with speed. Find my happy medium. Okay, so that's there. Now we have to connect the connectors. So the question is, can we tie this up in so I have less clutter in the case? So we're around the front, and this seems to work. It's the first time I tried it. Oh, and before I go too far, let's get you screwed in. Shovel in. And I want to twist tie this back up again. Between the CPU cooler and the power supply, if I can. Okay, now I put the last finishing touches in for the screws. And then I want to put my USB Type-C nice and snug on here. As much as I can. Which is a very limited situation. Oh, wow. It actually snagged itself up. Nice. Now, one thing to note is the power supply actually includes a 1 4-pin to 3 4-pin. So you can connect 3 different fans to one header if needed. So for the side of the case, just put it in, slide it on. Front cover. Seems to be easiest for the bottom up. And so now all I gotta do is turn it on. I hope you enjoyed this build in the NR200 case from Cooler Master. If you enjoyed videos like this, please leave a like and subscribe Not BIOS so I can bring you more content like this. In fact, if I get big enough as a channel, I can review items that normally I would not be able to get, because then I have the opportunity to ask companies for those items without having to pay out of my own pocket for everything like I do now. Thank you for watching, and have yourselves a wonderful day.
This is Not BIOS, Tech and Hardware.